We will wait for few attendees to join and then we will start. So, good evening, everyone. Today, I, Chirag Maru and Jaspreet Kaur, the host for the Research Guidance webinar, very warmly welcome all the panelists and the attendees present here. The Student Welfare Group has brought to you this panel discussion on research domain as a career choice, where we will be discussing various questions with our respected panelists who have had their previous experiences in the research and development domain. I would also like to request the audience to keep posting their questions and queries in the chats as we will be going through them at the end of this program.
We are delighted to announce our three amazing panelists for the session. But before that, I would request the panelists to kindly switch on their cameras. Our first panelist for the day is Mr. Shrey Verma. Shrey, we would love to hear about your research interests and the projects that you've done so far.
Hello, am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible, Shrey.
Good evening to everyone. My research interest is in robotics, and like specifically, I have more inclination towards mechatronics and mechanical design. And I have done a couple of past projects in mechanical designing. So basically, my research interest grew in mechanical designing because I took up a lot of projects in this field. However, I also have experience in embedded systems as well as a little bit of programming as well. So that's why I have chosen robotics as a career path for now.
Thank you, Shrey. Next, we have with us Mr. Agni Purani. Agni, would you please tell us about your projects and the field that you're working on?
So, hi, I'm Agni. So, I'm from the Department of Physics, and my research area is in the core. So, basically, I'm doing physics. Specifically, my last two projects were on experimental particle physics, and the first project that I did was on particle physics.
Thank you, Agni. Our final panelist for the day is Mr. Yash Mundewari. Yash, we would be glad to hear about your projects and your research interests.
Hi, so my research interests are mainly in the domain of computational biology. So that's an interdisciplinary area between computer science and biotechnology. So my projects have been in that field. So mostly it's applying statistics and concepts from computer science to biological data or biological problems.
Thank you, Yash. So, without any further ado, let's get started.
So moving on to the first question of the day and our event, that how did you develop interest in your respective field, and did it start after you came to IIT Kharagpur? Any of the panelists who would like to go with this question first?
I would like to answer that.
Yes.
Yeah, so like I read the question beforehand. Uh, so my interest in the field of robotics started when I definitely when I joined IIT Kharagpur. So before that as well, I like wanted to make some robots like when I was in class 11th and 12th, but like there was no direction to it. So the direction was given when and during my first year. So basically, when I came in my first year, we participated in the hardware modeling general championship. From the hardware modeling this competition, my interest in robotics began. So after that, took up a couple of. So I basically did a branch change in mechanical engineering after that. So owing to my interest in mechanical designing, and after that, I took up a project with Professor Dilip in mechanical engineering department, which was in the field of robotics, and I had to do mechanical designing in that. So yeah, that's how my interest in robotics and mechatronics developed.
Yeah, Shrey, that was nice to listen to your experience. And Agni, would you like to add something to this?
Yes, so in my case, like I was interested in physics before I came to, but like once I, especially like talking, like in first year, like when we had physics, like the our physics professor was really good and approachable. Talking to them also my interest.
Yes, would you like to add something to it?
Uh, yeah, like I mean, my experience was just that before joining IIT, I was pretty interested in science in general. So, uh, yeah, I had a choice to choose MSc Physics as well. So, my interest was always in science. So, I almost chose physics instead of this. But yeah, so that is the reason why I was quite certain that I'd be doing something in the research domain, but I had not picked my research area or anything of that sort yet. I started to explore all these fields after I came to KGP, but yeah, I definitely had an inclination towards science before I came here.
Yeah, thank you, panelists, for your wonderful insights. Now we can move on to the next question.
A lot of beginners who want to pursue research are confused on how to take the first step. So I would request our panelists to tell us how did you all build up your profile in initial days and what did you all do to enter your field? Yash, would you like to start?
So actually, like in my previous answer, I think I said this as well. So like the hardware modeling competition was the thing which made me enter the field.
Thank you, Shrey. Would any of the panelists want to add something?
Yeah, so I started with doing a lot of courses initially. So my field requires a lot of mathematics, so that's linear algebra, statistics, and those things. Some of it is also covered in the first year syllabus, so I built it up from there. Um, and I then approached a professor in KGP itself for a project. So that's how I got a good solid start in this field. And after that, I was able to approach people from outside and able to get projects.
Thank you, Yash. Agni, please add something to this.
Yes, so in my case, like for example, there was this program in the first year that I came to know. Yes, it was called NIUS Physics. Basically, it initially it's a summer camp, and after the summer camp, you get to choose from a list of projects. So in my field, basically, for example, if you want to a theoretical project, you really need a good background in your fundamental. So having a good grip on coursework courses are important, and I would say like applying through programs in the first year gives you a good chance of getting in. For example, this NIUS program, it's also there for physics and biology too, chemistry and biology, not only. And also these summer schools would actually give you a good idea onto what generally, like when someone comes to, they don't have a good idea. I mean, they have some idea on what all fields are there, but to get a better understanding, such help and also provide a good to start with, like to apply for.
Thank you, dear panelists. That was really insightful.
So now we have the third question, that is, who are the relevant people that needed to be contacted to get some guidance about how to pursue your research interests? And how do we find these relevant people and how do we approach them for the first time? Who would like to take up this question?
Yeah, can I go?
Yes.
Yeah, so in my case, I just approach seniors first. So I think that's the best way to go about it because they know the structure around KGP curriculum and KGP professors to take up your first project or anything of that sort. So it's a lot more streamlined than trying to go about it on your own. Going online and trying to look for things. So if you have a vague idea of what you have in mind, you should I think you should go ahead and approach seniors in your department, maybe third years and fourth years, who generally they are willing to help. And yeah, I think those are the first people that you should contact to understand who to contact next. Like in some fields, KGP might have good profs, so you can just start from there, for example. But this is highly dependent on your research area. So that's how I think you should go about it.
Thank you. And Agni, would you like to add something to it?
Yes, I agree. Well, like seniors are a much better. I mean, approaching seniors would actually give you an idea because they already have the past experience. So you might get to know some, but also you should also keep a lookout on your own if there's something new starting from that uh, year too. And also, secondly, for example, if uh, start a conversation with the professor, try to maintain contact with him because, like in my case, in our department, if you have a good contact, he or she shares uh, summer schools or upcoming programs, and also it would be used for reference letters, which more when you take.
Agni, can you increase your voice as it is
Is it
faint
better
and
now?
yes, now it is better.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Agni, for your response. And now, Shrey, do you want to add something or you think something is left out? Any points you would make?
I think both of them covered it sufficiently, but the only this warning is that don't trust anyone blindly. Like seniors, there are a couple of seniors. Like you might get a couple of seniors who will give you biased opinions. So that is something which is human nature. So it is not their fault. But what happens is like people will share their experience, and it is not necessary that what happened to them will happen to you directly, like it will apply to you. So it is not something like if someone says you that it is not possible or something like that, then you get disheartened and don't try it at all. So that is something which you need to look out for. And again, like it is best to like judge by your own conscience. So like the thing is, you can to avoid this, you can contact like multiple seniors in the relevant field, like two or three, and then you can judge based on what everyone is saying. Like so, you should not ask one question to every senior. So like there should be a common question which you ask to all the seniors. It should not be like I will ask this senior regarding FT and this senior regarding, let's say, CDC intern. So even if a person he does not have a CDC intern, you should still contact him regarding research interns as well. Maybe he will give you some different type of insight. Maybe he tried to apply, but then he or she took the CDC intern instead. So like in that way, you should like explore it a little before making your own decision.
Thank you, Shrey. That was a very important advice. And is, is it possible for you to turn on your camera, or is there any issue?
Yeah, I can turn on, but actually I'm outside, so like my network might fluctuate. That's why I'm not turning it on.
Yes, this is fine. Now we can move on to the next question.
Is it necessary to have a self project before applying for a first research internship, or having the fundamental knowledge or keen interest about that research fee sufficient? Agni, we would like you to start.
Yes, so in case of physics, particularly, I would say that the self project is a very rare thing in case of the first thing. Most of the people usually either summer schools or more importantly, their skills matter more during and the GPA would matter more during the first project, I would say, rather than because self projects in physics, I would say, is usually not that common, and it's hard to find out a topic because it's hard to carry it out in the first place. So things like some small for example, you could have a term paper from a course that would probably work as a initial thing, or maybe that's basically it in terms of this. In terms of physics, I would say. I think other panelists would be better, would give a better answer for that.
Thank you so much, Agni. Shrey, please share insights with us.
So I think like there has to be like a fundamental knowledge of the research field which you want to pursue. So like a self project isn't necessary. You can take up projects in our college as well. Like you can search for departmental projects. So basically, like my interest, since it was a interdisciplinary field in which mechanical, electronics, and computer science, basically three or four fields are clubbed together in robotics. So like I looked at the research interest of the professors in mechanical engineering department, and based on that I took up my first research project. So before that there was not any as such self project, but yeah, like in KGP it is easier to take up projects in second year. Just if you have a decent CGPA, the professor will be like able to give it to you. But the only thing is like there is a method to search for the research interest of professors. It is really simple. You can either just Google the professor's name and just write IIT KGP. So you will either land on the Google Scholar or the professor's own website. So that is one way, or the other way is if you know, if you don't know the name of professor, then what you can do is you can directly look up in the department website, and there will be a place where you can find the name of all the professors with their research interest. Like basically, a directory is available for that.
Thank you so much, Shrey. Yash, please add some to this.
Yeah, so I would say that even my field self projects are rare because I think self projects in general reflect skill more than they reflect research aptitude. So it's kind of hard to do research on your own when you first start out. So I would say that instead of this, as the other panelists mentioned, having a good CGPA is always it's a big benefit, a big advantage if for your first research internship. But more than that, I think before applying for an internship itself, if you have a proper project, it can even be like something like a literature survey with a professor. That would be a lot more helpful than trying to do something on your own, because for
Thank you,
research
panelists, for
internships.
your elaborate answers. I'm sure it has cleared up a lot of doubts of your audience.
Yes, were you saying something at the end? Like,
Yeah, I was just going to finish the sentence saying
I'm
that
sorry,
generally.
my audio just freezed. I'm really sorry.
That's okay. I was just saying that another benefit of just doing something minor like a literature survey, if you're not sure about your interest in research, is that you can also get a recommendation letter from a professor, because being involved with the professor itself, they are generally willing to give recommendation letters. So that's required for applying for research internships. So
Thank you so much, panelists. We can now move on to the next question.
so, how did you apply for your first research internship? And most importantly, how did you prepare for them? And what exactly was the selection procedure? Shrey, would you like to answer this?
Yeah, sure. My first, I will go towards like what was the selection procedure. So for the selection procedure, it's really simple. I initially made one this CV as soon as the CDC internship started begin, and using that CGPA, I did a little bit of modification so that it can be used for research purpose. So basically, for research based resumes, what you have to do is you need to add 3 or 4 points in which you not only explain the project itself, you explain the work which you did in another 2 lines, and in the last line, what you have to do is like you need to write a really lame in a layman language. You need to write like what purpose that project serves. So basically, let's say if I made some robot, so like why did I make it, or what was the final goal? So that's something which you need to include in your resume. So basically, the resume is the most important thing when you are applying, because the professor will be reading that first, and also you have to write a impactful cover letter as well, like for DARD wise program. So I applied for DARD wise and MyTex. In both of them, so both of them are programs. In DARD wise, you need to find professor on your own. So that is a tedious task. You need to search on the websites of all the institutes in Germany and basically look up for the professors whose research interest match with yours. And for MyTex, the directory is already given in the program website, and you can just directly choose a professor and apply.
Thank you, Shrey, for this information. And I would ask Yash to add something to it.
yeah, so uh, I mean, I've done one project with a professor uh, from the US, but since that was during COVID, I don't know if that's what you're looking for, that answer. But that also involved making a CV and making a cover letter. And yeah, as Shrey said, like you have to uh, have a very impactful cover letter, because if it's very lengthy, they will not take the time to read it. They're very busy people. So it's important to uh, make sure that your cover letter and CV go through multiple rounds of review from seniors. And yeah, for my present internship, which is the first proper in-person internship that I'm doing, so for that the selection procedure was similar. I had to upload a personal statement. So if you're applying for proper internship programs, they might require something called a personal statement or a motivation letter or something of that sort, where you have to basically list whatever work you've done and what is your interest, your research interest, and why you're interested in it. So it's more like it's a blend of your personal interest as well, not just your work. So yeah, and apart from that, you need recommendation letters. They carry a lot of weight, especially for internships, I think. Like in the research internships that do ask for recommendation letters. So I think your reco letters will carry more weight than your CGPA uh, you know, as you become, as you gain seniority, basically. So that's something important. Like make sure that you start looking for professors who can give you letters of recommendation.
These were some of the important tips, and hope it has summed up many points. And Agni, I would request you to add something.
Yes. So, for example, in my first year, I had applied for this NIUS program. There again, like in general, most programs they ask you to write a small essay, either motivation letter or a statement of purpose. So depending on the program, like for example, let's say you have NIUS or DAD, they would be read by a panel of like a general panel and not by someone who is experienced. So you should include what you have done in the past, but rather do not use fancy technical jargon in those initial things. So this is a mistake that a lot of people also make, but you should explain everything clearly in that. Secondly, if you're applying for like a country specific program, try to also specify why, I mean, what that country has to offer in terms of your research, or like why would you like to do that. Secondly, like again, so those were the two important things that I wanted to add. And like you could also, other than the programs, you could approach a professor, let's say directly via email, if you find like him or her research areas interesting and would like to work with them. So you could directly try to mail them. And for example, one of my classmates, he tried applying that but couldn't get it, but he still wanted to work with that. So there is, for example, IIT KGP USA Foundation scholarship, which would give you funding if you have to do that. So there are ways, so you can directly mail them other than through the programs too. So that's another thing.
Thank you, Agni, and all the panelists for such insights. And now we would like to move on to the next question.
When we hear the term research environment, a typical image that pops up in the head of a lot of us, including me, is that of a closed laboratory where a scientist is working for 24 hours a day. But I'm sure that research is a lot more interesting and seems to be. So, I would want our panelists to tell us something about how was the research environment like and what significance did that experience have on your future decisions. Yes, please share insights with us.
You mean during like the FT or your research internship, right? The research environment.
Um, During both of them, like FT and your internship.
Okay, so like one thing I would say is that at least in certain geographies, people will tend to work more. They will have less of a defined work-life balance sort of thing. So at least from what I've observed or what I've talked to people about certain geographies, so at least the geography I'm in right now, in the US, they tend to work more. So they work more than people do in India, I think. At least like the productive hours that they put in, I would put it that way. So yeah, it's certainly not like it's easier outside or something. Uh, but yeah, I would also say that people tend to be, if they are in this field, they tend to be very passionate, and I think that would be shared across various geographies as well. So yeah, I think that's something different that I've seen, that they're not just in it to score points in their CV. When they're staying back later in the lab or something, they are there because they want to solve the problem the same day. So yeah, and that has had the impact that that has in turn motivated me to be be more disciplined about my approach as as I go into research further, and it has solidified my decision of going into research. So
Thank you so much, Yash. Shri, please share insights with us.
Yes, so I think I am not the right person to ask this question because like both of my research interns were remote. But yeah, I can definitely like in a remote environment as well. There is some sort of research environment which is going on. So in a remote internship, what the major part on our end is that we have to be really focused and determined to work on the project. Otherwise, we might feel left behind because the professor, he might not be, he or she might not be able to devote that much time because it is not even economical for him or her to like give so much time on a research intern or on a remote intern, because the thing is like I'm not visiting the lab and he actually cannot look at what I have done in the whole day, so like how many hours I have devoted and all that. So to do that we need to document our work every day. We should be like fluent in making PPT, so that we can sum up whatever we have done in a concise way, and it is easier for the professor to understand what we have done throughout the day. And another thing is like there is also time zone differences and language barriers as well. So for German internship, basically the TAs, they were not able to understand like English in a good way. So basically there was a lot of communication gap. So to avoid it, I had to basically draw on some notepad or on this paint app or something, basically what I am trying to explain to them. Or in my case, I directly showed them in SolidWorks like what I am trying to explain. So that is another thing. So you should be ready for it. And like there will be definitely some communication barriers if the other nation is also not English speaking.
Thank you, Shrey. Agni, please share experience with us.
Yes, so about like people working 24 hours and all that, I can definitely say that that's not true, but people stay because they want to stay. For example, in my internship at Daisy, right now, there is no fixed working hours for us. So you basically can come whenever you want and leave whenever you want, but in but it's not like people just don't come. So people sometimes come early and stay late depending upon like what problem we are solving, and it's that the interest in is what is important in research that makes you stick to it. So that is what it is. And
Thank you,
also like
panelists.
yeah, so I would also
Yeah,
like to
you can
add
continue.
that uh, uh, in Europe, especially in terms of research internships, people are like when they do work, they work extremely professionally. And like for example, on weekends, it is a strict no do. So that's what I have observed. So, yeah.
Thank you, panelists, for sharing your valuable insights with us. It must have cleared up a lot of myths that the people have related to research environments.
So the next question is, uh, what is the general growth of research in your field? Like, what is the scope of further research in your field? Agni, would you like to answer this first?
Yes, so in my field of research, like I would say that in the 1980s was a very good time for it, but now, like after 2012, it was declining a bit, but that's because like the my field, like the experimental particle physics, heavily relies on the data you get. And now, since, for example, on 5th July, the Large Hadron Collider started its run 3, and so this particular time, like this coming years, would be a very important, I would say, like a very nice time for doing research in the field. And also, upcoming colliders are coming from 2026 and so on. So I would say that the coming few years would be uh, it'll be interesting to see what we get out of the. So
Wow.
there definitely is. And for example, in case of theoretical physics, I would say that uh, the you I mean you can keep finding things out in like it's up to you create your own path in that case, and see what you can probe and find out. So there is definitely a lot of opportunities, and I think now it's getting even more competitive because a lot of people are realizing the scope in physics too. So
It was wonderful to know about the growth of research in your field. And now I would request Yash to say something about his field of interest. What is the general growth?
Yeah, I would say that it's pretty good. My field of research is systems and computational biology. So uh, the size of biological data sets keeps growing every day, and it's not just simple analytics. I mean, in this case, you have to be proficient with the science to understand where the data is coming from, and uh, there are lots of like internal challenges. So someone who can understand both uh, who is not just a biologist who learned how to code, or who is a computer scientist who has just read a few papers on biology. If you're someone who is truly in the middle of both of the fields, then you can definitely come up with some very interesting work. And I would say even on the industry side of things, it's growing pretty well. Like I think a lot of you might have heard of DeepMind's AlphaFold 2 algorithm. So they work on protein folding. So yeah, many corporates like Google, DeepMind, these people on the computer science side of things, and even on the biotech side of things, like Pfizer, they're very interested in developing these methods to, just make sure that the entire process of biological research moves faster. Because at least in my field, it takes 5 years, 6 years to develop something, and another 5 6 years to do clinical trials, and by the time a drug is out in the market, it can be 15 years or so. So that's pretty uneconomical right now for many drugs that can be commercialized. So yeah, I would say that both in academia and industry, it has a pretty good scope right now. And even for like starting your own thing, if you want to do that later on after your doctorate or something.
Yeah, Yash, thank you for your insights. It seems that there is a lot of scope of research in your field as well. Now,
Yeah, I would just add one more thing, that it's most of it is not in India right now. So that's another thing I would say, that if you are looking for research opportunities in my field, it's generally outside of India, Europe and the US generally.
I would request Shrey if something is left out, he can add.
No, I think both of them summed it up nicely. So the for my research interest, I think there is a lot of scope. So obviously, like robotics is the future right now. So from the perspective of Indian market as well, there are a lot of budding startups in robotics. But again, like what I have seen working in like in one or two companies, like I have been in contact in Indian like robotics startups. So what I have seen is like right now they are in a transition between a startup and a company, like in a startup and a good company, like which is not a startup. So like the thing is that it will take time for the robotics field to start in India. So the basic reason for that is right now most of the robotic startups, they are focused towards just assembling the parts, just ordering the parts from either from China or some foreign country, or just copying them and manufacturing them in India and just assembling them. So I think that needs to change right now. So I don't know how fast that change will be there, but as soon as that change will occur, when India will start making its own like hardware, both in terms of electronic hardware and mechanical hardware, where how the robots will work. So after that, the job opportunities will increase like tremendously, and also the pay scale for robotics and engineer in India will also increase. So right now, the highest paying robotics roles in India like revolves towards the software development and like basically the coding part. So the mechanical designing and embedded electronics engineers, they are separately hired. They are not specifically you can say they have not specifically worked in the field of robotics. They come from a more generalized field. So that's why most of the things they are not R&D based, and all the R&D that goes in, it is also basically how they can buy parts and just club them together and manufacture a robot. So R&D is also going in that. So I'm not sure about all the companies, but this is what I have seen from my experience. there are definitely companies which are creating their own bots as well. But yeah, there will be like a curve where the startups will grow.
Thank you, Shrey, for sharing with us your experience and the growth of research in your field. And it was interesting to know. So now we can move on to the next question.
With a multitude of courses available in our institute, it sometimes becomes confusing to select the right course that aligns with our future goals. So, how to select the relevant courses in our institute which are related to our field of interest? Shrey, we would like to hear from you.
Coming from mechanical department, like there are a lot of courses itself in my department which will be relevant for robotics. Like starting from the second year itself, there are courses like dynamics as well, which will be later used to understand the inverse kinematics, inverse dynamics of in robotics. And also, like there is this micro specialization in embedded systems control, so which is provided by this ATDC, Advanced Technology Development Center. So that micro specialization will also help you understand the basics of microcontrollers and interfacing different sensors together. So that is also one of the thing. And apart from that, there are a lot of courses which are taught by Professor Dilip Kumar Pratihar of Mechanical Engineering Department, like robotics and all. They are also available on NPTEL. You can watch them as well. So either you can take them as electives, because I think most of those courses are available as open electives. I'm not entirely sure. So I know about the mechanical side. I am not really sure about the like the coding part, like how you can take up those courses. So for that, I think it is better to do some projects and get involved in either inter IT competitions or some or the other research groups.
Thank you so much, Shrey. Agni, please add something to this.
Yes, so in terms of courses that you have to take for a particular thing, like in the ERP section, if you go to the subjects and the curricula, you should be able to see a lot of courses from different departments. Also, some courses might not be offered by through a department, but by through certain centers like Center for Theoretical Studies, or there is a Center for Computation stuff also. So you should also look out for those courses if they interest you, and I think you can find a detailed thing about the what the course offers. If you click on it, you should be able to get a PDF of that. You could also even ask the professor who taught the course last year if you want to clarify something or if it's available this that particular semester. Uh, Also, like that's basically about the courses. I would say. Apart from, I would say that experience would matter more than courses, but initially, yes.
Thank you so much, Agni. Yash, please share insights with us.
Yeah, like as Agni said, like your courses and all these things will matter only when you have in your first or second internship and project. After that, it will matter more on what kind of research you have done and how you have contributed to that body of research. But initially, if you want to search for relevant courses, I think at least what I used to do is I first used to ask my seniors about what are the relevant departments and first go through those in detail, because as Agni said, that don't just be restricted to your own department, because in KGP often you will find that other departments other than your own will have relevant courses for you. But yeah, you should take that with a grain of salt, because if the professor is not good, if you cannot get anything out of it, out of that course, then it's not really worth going through an entire semester of coursework just to get one out of 100 courses that go on your CV. I mean, on your transcript. And other than that, I would say that also do your own due diligence. As he said, you go to ERP, you can see all the subjects, right? So I would say I would encourage you to go through all the departments if possible. Like, I mean, you have to do that only once. You don't have to do that all the time. But if your research, especially if your research area is something that is not very commonly pursued. So yeah, maybe if you're in like physics or chemistry, computational biology, generally there are fewer seniors working in these domains. So it's better to also do your own due diligence and go through all the departments once.
Thank you to your panelists for your detailed answers. Um, it was really insightful to hear all those. Um, we can now proceed to the next question.
So I would like the panelists to throw some light and on how to uh, find some student research programs which are relevant and which can be pursued in India or abroad. Any of the panelists would like to go?
So about finding programs, first of all, you can get a preliminary list from the seniors by asking your seniors, because they would have also searched for such programs in the previous years. Secondly, you could just Google like country-wise programs, like using different keywords in different combinations, and you probably can find some interesting things. If you're particularly interested in joining certain universities, you could even look at their web page and go to their research sections, or the summer student, they would have some information if they host certain programs. So that is another way of looking at things. So for example, the German, so some standard ones are like MyTax for the Canadian thing, DAD, which is the German program. You also have something called Charpak for the French program, and so there are country-wise programs like these too. So that's-
Yeah. So
and I
yes,
would suggest to start early, like before the start of the autumn semester, so that you have enough time to apply for them also in case, because it is easy to miss deadlines when you are.
yeah. Thank you for your insights, Agni. And Yash, would you like to add something to what Agni said, or
Yeah, so I think from like off the top of my head, apart from the ones that Agni listed, I think there's SN Bose as well. That's for US. So and there's a couple of them by EPFL too. But this is highly variable by research area. So as you said, like contact your seniors first in your department, and yeah, apart from that, it's very important to start early because I think my tax and dad, both of them have their deadlines in like August to November. So, and once the semester starts, it becomes more difficult to find time. So, start from the previous summer. I would say like now is a good time to start. Now it's July, so start building your CV or cover letter because these have to go through multiple rounds of review. So yeah, I'll start early. That's one thing I would suggest. And yeah, for the programs, just keep looking them up online. Like that's what I did. Like every time I used to get some time, I used to just Google. That's the best way. Apart from the list that you find from the seniors.
so the one thing that is clear that we must start early with the preparation of the CV and make it short, and also we can go to Google for any help and finding that, and also we can go to our seniors and ask to them about it. And Shrey, do you think something is left you can add now?
No, I think both of them summed it up well.
Okay, so thank you, panelists, for such informational answers. We can move on to the next question.
It is very often seen that students are from a department that does not align with their field of interest. For example, a person from civil may be interested in pursuing research in the field of mathematics. So, how difficult is it to build up a research profile that is completely different from your core department? Would any of the panelists want to start? Shrey, we would like to hear from you. Hello, I'm audible.
Yes, you are.
Agni, you
Agni,
can.
would you? Yeah, I guess Shrey has a problem with its network.
Yes, so in terms of people from other department, like I cannot say myself because I have taken research in a core field, but in terms of the people who I have met during my internships, I have seen quite a lot of people from the side of engineering who come into such experimental physics. First of all, because you do require quite a lot of data analytical skills in this particular field. The only thing that you would have to do is to learn the physics, which actually could be done by taking courses in that area. And it's like, for example, like a person from computer science can do a research internship in physics if he is having some fundamental background in the area he wants to work in. So, but I cannot fully say it because I don't have any experience in doing so. But there are people who do it.
Okay, thank you, Agni. Yes, would you please add something to this?
Yeah, so my research area is also very interdisciplinary. So we have people from engineering, mathematics, statistics, physics as well, who contribute to computational and systems biology. So, um, but it's not exactly it's not very far away from my own core department. So I also cannot say that I'm 100% suitable to answer this question. But yeah, I think the general procedure would pretty much be the same. You have to take courses, you have to approach professors, and I just think that at least from what I've observed, the difference would be that you would have to have more solid foundational coursework, because I don't think very higher level coursework would matter. But suppose if you are in civil engineering and you want to do research in computer science, it would be a lot more important to take courses in, say, algorithms and other basic foundational courses, because that is how you would convince someone to give you a project in the first place. Because academia unfortunately works that way generally, that I mean, if you're applying for a research internship, projects might be easier to get at KGP. But yeah, and I would say that in any case it would be whether you're from the same department, or if you are in a different department, uh, at the end of your 4 or 5 years at KGP, it would matter more that you have contributed to that body of research. Like if you've published something, or if you have a professor or two who are willing to write you a very nice recommendation letter, where if you don't have something published, they're at least willing to uh, you know make sure that they give you good letters that will detail your passion and your ability as a researcher. So yeah, I think that's what would matter at the end of the day. You may have to take up another degree, like a master's degree, maybe. I'm not sure, because that is something I've just observed. I've not contacted these people myself, but that is something I've just observed, that they sometimes may take up another master's degree in the field of interest they have before they go on to their PhD.
Okay, thank you, Yash. Shrey, can you hear me?
Yeah, actually my net
Yeah,
was not working that. So,
it's absolutely okay.
begin the sorry.
You can please continue.
Yeah, so like in the taking up like a research profile which is not from your core department, it is a little tricky. So like you can take up research internships and take up projects by participating in. So the easiest way to build a profile in robotics would be to participate in inter-IT competitions, because every year there are like a lot of like basically almost all of them have some sort of touch in robotics. So whether they are like mid prep or high prep events, or even low prep events, they have some relevance in the field of robotics. So that is one of the way. Other ways, like you can participate in the general championship, and in that as well, like the product designing competitions and hardware modeling competitions also, they include a lot of robotics related stuff. And apart from that, even the SIS, the Smart India Hackathon, and you can basically participate in various hackathons as well to build up your profile in robotics, even if you come from a different department. But the problem would be when you want to pursue masters or something, because, like from what I know, most of the popular robotics masters program, they allow people coming from either computer science, electronics, electrical, or mechanical. So that's where the bottleneck might come. So till undergrad and taking up applying for FTs as well, that also won't be much of a problem, because again it won't matter from which department you are coming from. But after that, it might be a little problematic.
Thank you, dear panelists, for your elaborate answers. This question is one of the most common queries that students from core departments have. Your answers have cleared this doubt really well.
So the next question is like that most of the students from core department of engineering like generally don't go for research, but a few are interested in going for further studies and not sit for the placements. So are there research opportunities available to students from traditional engineering branches like civil, mechanical, etc.? Any of the panelists would like to go? Yes.
So definitely there are a lot of research opportunities available. Even from my batch, around 5 or 6 people, they are going to pursue further studies. And I'm just talking about the 4 year guys. So like even from the 5 year course, like 1 year senior from me, they are also like around 4 or 5 people who are going to pursue their masters or PhD. So again, it is not like all of these students, they don't have a placement. So most of them even have job offers from good companies, but like it's their choice, like they want to pursue masters and want to build up their research profile further. So it again, it is not a bottleneck anytime. Like even the bottleneck isn't in job opportunities. If you want to pursue job in core, there is a lot of opportunity for that as well. It's just that you should be willing to do it. And like again, there are a couple of trade-offs of going in your interests.
Yeah, Shrey, thanks for the insights. Uh, Yash, would you like to add something to this?
Yeah, so at least in my field, like biotechnology, it's entirely interdisciplinary. So uh, a lot of engineering branches contribute very heavily to biomedical engineering and biotech in general. So if you're from mechanical or chemical, you can look into things like microfluidics. So a lot of current platforms that we use in experiments in biology are built by engineers, and it's very high impact work. Like a lot of modern research would not be possible in biology without the contribution from engineers. So that's one thing. And even if you're from electrical, you can look into things like brain inspired computing and working with uh, electrodes and stuff like that, MRIs. There are lots of things that engineers can contribute in biology. So I think if you're looking at it from the perspective of applying your core field to a different sort of problem, a research problem, then I think there is a lot of scope. Like if you're good at it, then certainly you can do some very, very high impact work. So I don't think like you should be restricted to thinking that there are no research opportunities in your core field. There are certainly a lot of research opportunities.
Thank you, Yash, for your insights. Agni, would you like to say something?
Yes, I mean, basically, the other two panelists have summed it up very well. Like, for example, even in physics, in instrumentation and building of experiments also requires quite a bit of, challenge and engineering involved. So That's what. So again, it is possible.
So this has cleared pretty much all the doubts regarding this question. Now we can move on to the next question.
Unfortunately, in India, pursuing research from foreign universities is still considered to be a luxury that only a few privileged people can afford. And due to this, I'm sorry, my net just got disconnected. I would repeat the question. Unfortunately, in India, pursuing research from foreign universities is still considered to be a luxury that only a few privileged people can afford. And due to this belief, a lot of Indian youngsters tend to drop the ambition of pursuing research from their dream universities because they feel that it would result in financial burden to the family. I would request the panelists to kindly give their views on this. Agni, you could start.
Yes, so regarding this, there are, first of all, I would say that there are a few scholarship programs that exists that actually help in terms of reducing this financial burden. And for example, if you go to PhD, usually they usually receive a monthly salary, which is i- in my field, I would say like the place where I interned, it was pretty good and reasonable, I would say, in terms of that. And also, other than this option, what most people do is that you could get some sort of an year of or some work experience in India and then pursue higher studies, for example, in R&D field. Like there are chances of you getting it and then pursuing uh, higher studies abroad too. So.
Okay, thank you, Agni. Shrey, please add something to this.
Like, I don't think there would be any financial burden if you are planning to pursue PhD. So there is an option that you can directly pursue PhD even after doing BTech. You don't have to do a master's. You can directly apply to the PhD programs. They might be difficult to get into, but if you have a good CGPA, then it is really a good thing to get into a PhD program because then you will be able to fund all of your studies. But again, PhD requires 5 years of commitment, which like many people are not sure that in which field they want to do PhD or something like that. So in that case, they can go with masters as well. So for masters, there are programs in the universities as well, which are partially or fully funded. You can, while applying, you can choose whether you want the funding or some sort of scholarship or financial aid. Apart from that, there are third-party scholarships as well, which will give you scholarship or scholarship loan. And so the advantage of getting the scholarship loan is that it will be really low interest or zero interest loan. And the major benefit would be that that won't add any financial burden to your family. So to say, it will be a financial burden only on you because that loan will be given to your name and you will have to repay it after you complete your education and you secure a job. So that is one way to fund your masters. And apart from that, so like as one of the panelists said, that you can also take up job for a couple of years and save for your masters and then do it. So in that case, like you should also look at the opportunity cost, because like if one of the factors is like directly applying after your BTech. It will be more impactful. The projects which you have done throughout your 4 years, they will have much more weightage than anything else. But after you have done job for 1 or 2 years, the role or the work that you do in your job, that will have more impact while like building up your application for masters or PhD. So that is one thing that you might not be able to, or you might not, or you might be able to get good into a good program depending upon what job you have done after your undergrad. And so that's one thing. And the opportunity cost is that basically you will leave your job for 2 or let's say 5 years for PhD. So in that time also you might be able to, so you will be definitely doing a job for those 2 or 5 years, right? So you will be earning, let's say your salary is something, let's say you get in hand of 12 lakhs. So if you do your job for 2 years, you save up, let's say 20 lakhs. You just use up 2 lakhs and some financial support from your family during your job. And what will happen is if you leave your job for masters, then you will also be losing 2 years of job experience. So definitely there will be some increment in job. Your salary might increase to let's say 15 lakhs after 2 years of job, and you might be able to get 30 lakhs in 2 years. So in that way, you are losing that money as well. And the major downside is that after you do your master's or PhD, you will again start from zero. So like you won't get into a senior role directly. You will again start by a basic job. So this is something known as opportunity cost. So you should also consider it as well.
Thank you so much, Shrey. Yash, would you please add something to opportunities available for us?
Yeah, I think like so at least in my field it is more common for people to go for a PhD than a master's. Like generally people from KGP they just convert to dual and then they go for a PhD. Because I think in biotech research it's you need a lot of background and proper scientific methods. So at least for PhDs, they are generally funded. I mean, if it's not funded, it's not advisable to go for a PhD. So during the time of your PhD, you won't have to take on any loan. It might not be enough to save a significant amount of money, but yeah, at least you will not be paying out of pocket or going into debt for that. And yeah, I think post your PhD, it's the same as any other job. So certainly there is a sort of opportunity cost, but at the same time, it's like you cannot do those roles without a PhD. So it's sort of a personal decision at that point. So I'd say that matters. And also for masters, yeah, I think some places might offer low tuition fees or scholarships, as the other panelists have said. So if you do want to go for a masters, you should look into that. As far as I know, that's more of Northern Europe, so Germany and places around that. So yeah, doesn't have to be a burden to your family.
Thank you so much, dear panelists. Those are some really insightful answers on the opportunities available for the people who wish to pursue research from the foreign universities. And I'm sure that your answers have cleared up a lot of queries for a lot of us.
Yeah, we would like to thank again the panelists for their valuable answers and taking some time to go through our queries. Now, we will take a few questions from the audience side, which they have posted in the chats. We will just pick a very few of them and they'll be answered very quickly. So, the first question is that is PhD necessary for pursuing research in India? Any panelist? Yash, would you
Uh,
like to answer?
yeah. So in India, as in if you want to go into academia anywhere, like in any geography, academia, I'm going to emphasize that I'm talking about academia in general. You need to have a PhD if you want to, do academic science or in a government lab. There are labs outside of India as well, which are funded by say the US government and entities like that. If you want to take up a scientist role, then you would require a PhD.
Yes, thank you for answering. And now the next question is that can you please tell a chronological order of how do we apply for a foreign research internship in a simple way? Shrey, Agni, or Yash, who would like to answer? Should I repeat the
Sorry,
question?
yes, I actually disconnected for a short while. So if you could repeat
Yes.
the question.
So, what is the chronological order of applying for a foreign research internship? Can you explain a short way? Like, what is the
Okay,
chronology?
So first of all, is to make a list of the internship programs. If you're going through an internship program, certain internship programs supervisor or a professor, for example, DAD or Charpak, in which case you should start making a list of people who you want to work with and make up a cover letter and send them your CVs. Uh, Once you select a project or get a professor, then uh, you also parallelly start working on your application. For example, you can fill in your name, other personal details while this is going on, and once you have found someone, then you can finish your application. You might also have to physically post your application. For example, in case of DAD, you had to. So keep that in mind, and once that is done, if you get a positive result, then for example, for foreign internships, you have to prepare for your visa and other stuff. So
So we will
this is
see.
a brief outline.
Yeah, yeah. You can continue. What?
That's it. Like that's a brief outline on it.
Yes, yes. So the last question, just a short one. That how did you manage your academics and projects together? Shrey, would you like to answer?
So yeah, definitely that's a challenge when you are talking about offline scenario. In online scenario, it's a little easier to manage, but in offline scenario, you have to like be ready to basically go to the lab and then to the classes, basically shuffling between your department or your like the research group lab and the classroom complex like Naranda. So basically there is a challenge over there, but again like if you have some similarity from like in between your research interest and your department, then definitely you will enjoy your academics as well, because again that is adding to your research profile in some way or other.
Yeah, thank you, Shrey, for answering. Next slide, please.
This brings us to the end of this insightful session. We are extremely grateful to our panelists for taking up time from their hectic schedules and sharing their insights with us. I'm sure as our listeners will definitely take back some valuable funding from this session, and we hope to see some of them on the other side of the talk next year. We would also like to thank the audience for their patient hearing and hope you learned many things with us and got your queries cleared. Last but not the least, I want to thank all my teammates from Student Welfare Group who have contributed in making this event a success.
Yes, thank you so much, panelists. This marks the end of this. Thank you. It was great event. Agni, Shrey, and Yash, would you like to share your experience about this event? Like, what did you feel about attending and answering to the queries?
First of all, thank you for having us. About the event, I would say like it was nicely organized. I think the questions covered a lot of fundamental doubts that I would have had if I was starting out. So uh, overall, it was very nice. Thank you.
Thank you. Shrey, how was your experience?
Yeah, so the questions were very thorough and they included almost everything that the applicants might need. during their application. If anything is left, they can definitely ping me directly on Facebook, on Messenger.
So now we will end this meeting. Thank you guys.